It's Free Talk Live, the live Sunday edition of the show. You're invited to join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. And our Discord call-in lines are over at discord.lrn.fm. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
And, of course, you can bring up whatever you want. That's what we do here on Free Talk Live. And actually, I was just reminded that we're going to have a special guest joining us here at some point here tonight. It may be sooner than I thought that it was going to be. And we're expecting to see Lynn Ulbricht joining us.
That's right.
I'd forgotten to have Skype open because we normally don't take Skype calls. But if we've got a special guest, we will open up the Skype. So, and I just saw that someone by that name joined our Discord server, so I'm guessing that might mean that she's ready to go on with us here. So we'll get to that coming up here. It's Ian, Richie, and Mark in the studio tonight. Coming up, Harvard researchers have advice for how to make small talk with people, or maybe talk with people in a way that isn't as small as what you've been used to in the past. And this story looks really interesting. Richie, you brought that in tonight. Plus, in Venezuela, the power is out, and it has been out for a lot of people there apparently for the last 4 days straight. Venezuela's government is blaming the United States for this, and we can get into that story. Plus, Mark, you wanted to discuss these British billionaires who apparently are calling it quits on the United Kingdom.
That's right. They're backing out and saying enough is enough.
So tell me more about that.
Yeah. So from Yahoo News, nearly a third of Britain's billionaires have either moved or are relocating to tax havens, where some have broken UK law by bankrolling political parties. A major investigation said on Thursday. The Times newspaper published a series of reports detailing allegations of Britain's ultra-rich hiding billions of pounds from the UK Treasury in taxes over the past decade.
Good for them.
My, first thing is that somehow we don't mind thinking of our money as our money. But other people's money is the government's money. Like, you're not hiding money from the government. It's none of the government's damn business in the first place how much money you've got and where you've got it. Just remember, you've been inculcated with this notion your whole life that it's okay for them to, track down bank accounts. And if you look at FATCA, it's almost impossible for an American to have a bank account in another country. So difficult that many countries and many banks just say, sorry, we don't do business with Americans. Now, this is obviously talking about Britain, but it shows a few things. First, if you make it difficult enough on billionaires, they will leave. Right?
Yeah, that's true across the board.
Because they can afford to.
Yeah, because they can afford to.
Right.
And when you read the article, my first thought was only a third of them? Like, where's the other 2/3, and why aren't they leaving as well?
Well,
Clearly they can afford to as well.
A lot of people, well, for one, when it comes to Great Britain, you don't have to pay taxes on money you make while outside of Great Britain.
Okay.
So they could potentially just go outside, make their money, then return. If they return it to Great Britain, then they probably have to pay taxes on it. But if they keep it in offshore accounts, then it doesn't matter as much. So there are ways to do this without giving up citizenship or relocating or those sorts of things.
Okay.
Going on. We must stop tax evasion so that the wealthiest pay their fair share, says Margaret Hodge, a leading lawmaker in the main opposition Labour Party who co-sponsored the tax haven measure. She tweeted in response to the Times report.
Can we just talk for a moment about the idea of a fair share?
Man, if that comes up again, like, what's the fair share, really?
What is it?
That's the question that never gets answered.
Right. Whatever they say it is.
Yes.
Right. Whatever the fair share is, whatever the government says it is, which is obviously, here we have the history's most inefficient organizational model, the most inefficient, right?
By
Seriously,
design.
The only way you could make this more efficient is having a bunch of deaf and blind people put it together. Not to say that deaf and blind people are bad, but they're just, going to have a difficult time with communication is all I'm saying. And
they'd still communicate better.
Maybe. It could very well be. I don't know, but it's a mess. And it's not going to be good because they don't have the right incentives in the first place. So, It's clearly not going to work. And the idea that you owe a fair share to this organization is nuts. What is the fair share? Shouldn't we all pay the same? Wouldn't that be fair? Why is it that...
You mean the same amount or the same percentage?
The same amount, the same percentage, the same whatever. I don't know.
Well, there's a big difference there.
Any one of these things would still be more fair than what you've got, where those who have much more, they take much more.
The fair share is, I want something done, I can't do it myself. Those people have the money, so let's go get their money to accomplish my goals.
If somebody can't do it, I'm willing to talk.
Okay.
If somebody won't do it, I don't have any use for them.
If they won't do what?
Whatever it is. The Bernie rally was down the road today
here in Keene.
Yeah, here in Keene, and I think like 3 o'clock today, and it was a room full of people, able-bodied people, who took time out to go listen to a guy talk about getting them free stuff. He didn't actually give them any free stuff, except maybe a sign that says...
The rally might have been free.
Yeah. Well, a sign that says Bernie. He asked for money, though.
Oh,
I'm
I bet
sure
he
did. So not a free rally.
Yeah.
Because didn't someone say that he wants the government to pay for elections?
Yes, he wants the government
there was
to pay
one
for
guy
elections.
at our social meetup who actually went to watch the thing.
So even that, right? He can't fund his own campaign. Probably couldn't get enough from all his...
Well, he can, but he's calling for government-funded elections because it gives the government more control.
Right.
Because then if the government's giving you the money, as though the elections aren't controlled enough, they certainly are. There's all kinds of campaign finance rules and things like that. Sure. But this would give them even more control over elections, because the idea would generally be that if the government were funding the campaigns, then private people couldn't fund. So it wouldn't be the funding. I don't think. Again, I didn't watch the speech.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the speech, so I don't want to put words in his mouth. But my understanding of the proposal tends to be that if we have the government fund campaigns, that would eliminate private donations. So it would all be funded by the taxpayers, and then no one would be able to actually give money directly to a campaign.
But there would be a bunch of people
control.
who took the money, ran for president, took the money, and then did whatever they did with the money. It'd be better if they just couldn't fundraise at all. What do you need money for to run a presidential campaign?
Advertising.
The media should be chasing you down, right? I mean, if you have really great ideas...
You would think.
You're saying you would get free advertising if you were a great candidate, is what you mean?
Bernie's getting free advertising right now.
That would probably be part of the package, right? If the government is funding the elections, like how could one person advertise more than the other? They would call that unfair, and
sure,
say that they got to make up the difference because he's getting more exposure.
I've had all the political advertising I need in my life. I've seen every political ad I need to see. Bernie Sanders tortures rabbits.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders likes torturing rabbits. Like it's so awful, vapid, inane crap that, I don't know, maybe Bernie Sanders' proposal that everybody gets a set amount is a better idea than what we have. I have no idea.
No.
But I wouldn't there's no good way to do this. The best way is to just disallow advertising better than anything.
I effectively cut the cable some years ago.
To cable television?
Cable television, yeah. And so I don't see those ads. But at one point in time,
they play them online. I've heard, on YouTube or whatever.
I would not seek them out.
Yeah, me neither. But sometimes
I see ads on YouTube.
See
lots of them.
But I came across them when I was spending time with my grandparents as they were
watching
TV.
TV.
I was hanging out with them. They were watching TV, and I swear I couldn't tell the difference between the Republican and the Democrat ad. Like every ad had the same message, sounded the same to me.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I avoid this in my normal life. And
absolutely.
I don't need to see any more of that.
They're just despicable. But, Mark, the answer isn't to have centralized control over elections, to disallow advertising or anything like that.
They already have centralized control over elections.
Right, but the answer is not to centralize it further and give the government even more control over it. The fact is, money isn't going to get out of politics, even if the government is in charge of it completely. Money is never going to get out of politics because
I long for the day that a man like me can run for president and not have to fundraise.
Then I'm running too.
The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. If we're going to have elections and governments, then people should be able to contribute to the people they support, I think. 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. We got more coming up here on, and your calls and thoughts are also welcome. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live, and it's the live Sunday edition of the show. You can dial in toll-free and bring up anything that you want here. Our number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Forkfest 2019 is just around the corner. Somewhat. It's 3 months away, but that's going to be here before you know it. It's the week before summertime, basically, right before the official start of summer. It is the 5 days prior to the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Forkfest is a decentralized camping festival for libertarian types in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire at Rogers Campground. This year, it'll be June 13th through the 18th. You can go to forkfest.party to learn more about that. Somebody in the Forkfest Telegram chat room yesterday was a little confused about what Forkfest was all about, asking if there was an organization behind Forkfest. He said there's somebody in charge, right? And I said, no, actually, that's kind of the whole point of Forkfest, is that there's no one in charge except for everybody who's in charge, meaning that everyone who attends the event is in charge of themselves, and that's it. So you get to decide what you do. You just want to come hang out in a campground with some other liberty-minded folks? Cool, you can do that.
It's a lot of fun.
You want to come and create something for those people who are hanging out to do, like throw a dance party, have a poker game, have a speaker series or whatever.
Sell burgers,
have a musical event. You can do that.
Outdo that other festival?
Well, I don't know if it'll outdo the other festival, but because the other festival, and by the way, apparently Porkfest, which is the other one, the Porcupine Freedom Festival, the one that follows Forkfest, it's actually in its 16th year. I'd been saying it was its 15th year, so I was corrected about that. It's going to be its 16th, and it's actually its 17th if you count the very first thing they did before Porkfest.
New Hampshire,
yeah, it was called something different, but it was at the same campground a long time ago. So go to forkfest.party if you want to learn more about that. That's forkfest.party. As we have Lynn Ulbricht with us here from Arizona. Hello, Lynn.
Hey there.
Hey, welcome back to Free Talk Live. I'm sorry we didn't get to interview you at Anarchapulco. You had fallen ill, as some of us did when we were down there. But
you too, huh?
Yeah, I didn't lose my voice, but it was not fun for a couple of days there for me in Mexico. But it was great seeing you down there. You were down there, of course, on behalf of your son, Ross Ulbricht, who some of our listeners may not know the name. Can you somehow encapsulate who Ross Ulbricht, who your son is, why we're talking about him in as short of a time as possible so you can bring our new listeners up to speed tonight?
Yeah, well, Ross is the defendant in the Silk Road case, and he is now serving, I just came from the prison, a double life plus 40-year sentence without the possibility of parole for essentially a website he created that allowed people to buy and sell many things, including drugs, which was overwhelmingly small amounts of cannabis, and not allowing things that created a victim and were not voluntary. So drugs were considered a free choice and were allowed. And because of that, he's serving right now in his 6th year of a double life sentence plus 40 years.
Some have speculated that his sentence may end up even being worse than El Chapo, who is this sort of infamous killer, drug kingpin from Mexico, who was recently convicted at trial and has yet to be sentenced. But it wouldn't surprise me if they end up sentencing him less than Ross.
Well, it's hard to do worse. But to be fair, El Chapo didn't provide the first proof of concept of Bitcoin, and that was the real crime. So, he's not as dangerous.
Yeah, that's a great point. I forget who it was that said it. I think I heard it said at the Texas Bitcoin Conference when you were speaking there at the very end of last year's Texas Bitcoin Conference, that somebody had said that Ross is probably the second most important person to Bitcoin besides Satoshi Nakamoto, because the Silk Road was, as you point out, the proof of concept, the proof that this is a useful thing, that Bitcoin is a useful currency and that people are using it for real products and services in reality. And that was the first time that really ever happened in a meaningful way, not just somebody buying a couple pizzas online.
I could see that case. My buddy used the Silk Road for a number of different things. and it was the struggle to get the Bitcoin at that time. Like Silk Road was the easy part. It was
getting the Bitcoin.
It was getting the
hard.
Bitcoin at that early stage.
Yeah, there's just so much that we can say about Ross and the contribution that he ultimately has made to freedom in general, the freedom of to sell the things that you want and buy the things you want online. Because even though they shut down the Silk Road, of course, many imitators have cropped up since then, some more honest than others, but they have continued and have grown, and the underground darknet marketplaces are in no way, shape, or form close to being over. The feds have not shut them all down.
Right. The handing out of 2 life sentences did nothing. Nothing.
Right. And further sentences of the other people involved in these other sites have been nothing like what happened to Ross.
No, the biggest drug seller on Silk Road got 10 years.
Right. Well, even the people even the other people running the other sites, Blake Benthal, who was running Silk Road 2, doesn't appear to have been sentenced to anything. I don't know what happened with that guy.
He was out after 13 days.
Wow.
My speculation, he had something on somebody at some high level that they just said let him out. I don't know because he was never prosecuted. It was just 13 days and he disappeared.
That's probably similar with El Chapo as well. I mean, a guy with that much power in that industry probably has something on someone somewhere.
That could be the case, but I mean, if you compare Ross Ulbricht's charge of 2 life sentences plus 40 years for running a website, more or less. Now, some people will say that there was a murder for hire thing going on, but that
was not a charge. It was never part of the trial.
Never charged, never convicted.
No.
Right. Dismissed with prejudice.
Correct.
I mean, it's, a judge decided it was a lie. Let's not forget that there's 2 corrupt government agents which had access to the website that could have done any of the things that they claimed.
Well, 2 that got caught. There were probably some more.
That's right. I think there was at least one more.
Yeah.
And
but 2 that are in prison right now.
Right. Dread Pirate Roberts, whom they claim Ross Ulbricht was, logged into the website while Ross Ulbricht was in prison. I mean, all these
clearly
things,
someone else had access to
all these things. But if you just presume that everything that they say about the charges is correct, he ran this website and all that other stuff, it still doesn't make sense, the sentence.
No. It's a violation of the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, not to be allowed. I mean, it's so out of proportion to what drug dealers get, or it's insane, but it's political. They're making an example out of him and trying to deter people, I guess, or get their trophy or whatever. And Chuck Schumer was calling for the takedown of Bitcoin and Silk Road, and of course it didn't work anyway. But they like to have a trophy. That's their target and their goal.
Now, your goal right now, obviously, is to get Ross out of prison as soon as possible. Unfortunately, all the appeals routes that were tried were exhausted without success, even though arguably they were good appeals based on, one of them, if I recall, was the fact that the evidence was tainted by the fact that there were at least 2 corrupt agents who pled guilty, mind you, to their corruption charges. That were involved in trying to steal money and et cetera, et cetera. You can stick with us, I take it, Lynn, right, to continue the conversation. Lynn Ulbricht is here with us. We'll continue. We'll talk about the petition to try to get Trump to pardon Ross, or at the very least maybe commute a sentence, get him out. So that's coming up here, and your calls and thoughts are welcome. Visit freeross.org. More on the way.
Bitcoin.com is delighted to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialists at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it is now easier than ever to get the gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash. To get started, just follow these simple steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com, pick the gift card you want, follow the instructions on your screen, and make your payment using your Bitcoin Cash wallet. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered to you as soon as it's ready. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free. Join us here if you want. In fact, if you've got a question for Lynn Ulbricht, she is graciously here with us, getting an update from her on what's going on with the efforts to get her son, Ross, out of prison. And the last-ditch chance here is to go to Trump and hope that he can be persuaded to do the right thing and let Ross out. All the man did was run a website, and he's been sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 40 years. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
Go to freeross.org. You can learn more about Ross and his story there. In fact, there's a great documentary series called Railroaded that was released in, I think it was 6 parts, that is viewable through the website. There's a banner right there at the top. It says, reader, watch now, Railroaded, the targeting and caging of Ross Ulbricht. If you're coming into this conversation and you're brand new and you don't know anything about Ross, then spend a couple hours, digging into this, because it is from the federal government side, a dirty, dirty prosecution. It was just a scam from top to bottom. Railroaded is absolutely the right term. And Lynn is back with us here online. Lynn, thanks for coming on with us here tonight.
Always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Yeah, and so you were down at Acapulco. I hear you're probably going to be going to the Porcupine Freedom Festival this summer. Is that right?
Yep, I am.
Excellent. So folks who have not yet had a chance to see you speak will be able to do that at the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and we'll be talking with the organizer of that, Roger Paxton, probably within the next couple of months at some point. He said he would be willing to come on, but he wants to nail down a keynote speaker first that he can promote while he's here. But you're going to be there, and you become a mainstay at that event, and coming up to New Hampshire and talking to folks up here, because Ross was a big fan of libertarianism, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. Ross is all about freedom. I mean, he did not create Silk Road to become a drug kingpin by any means.
Right.
It was about giving people a place to experience a true free market in privacy, and he also saw the potential for financial freedom with Bitcoin. And he was a Ron Paul supporter in 2008, and and 12, and he's always been all about liberty and freedom. Every time I go up to PorcFest and up to New Hampshire, I always feel so conflicted, because I'm happy to be there, but I just know he would love it so much, and it's just and all you guys, and it's just very bittersweet for me, because that's who he is. He totally would. You'd all like him. He'd like you. You'd all have real rapport, because you all have the same point of view.
Yeah,
I got a chance to talk to Ross, actually.
Yeah, you did.
Well, Mexico,
Ian has
right?
too.
Yeah.
Both of you have, actually.
That's true.
Yeah, but you did. He called me while I was staying at Mark's house in Mexico. So Mark, that was great.
Just briefly said hi. I didn't want to take up any time. He could talk to his mom.
Absolutely. So, Lynn, what's the latest? I think you have hit over, 130,000 signatures? What's the current status?
We're over 140 now.
140,000.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's growing steadily. And there's a petition, and people say, well, what's the point? And I'm like, well, yes, it's no guarantee, but it is a PR tool. And my goal is 500,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be able to go to the president, or someone who can show the president that there's 500,000 people who think this sentence is wrong by any measure.
Yeah.
And that it needs to be commuted. That's the right thing to do. And actually something that Mark and I talked a lot about when we were down there is that it's the politically advantageous thing for Trump to do. And I'm working on finishing up a document listing all the reasons why it would actually help Trump win.
If he did this before 2020.
Yes.
Yeah, let me make that point, if I may.
Yes.
Now, if people think for a second, people vote for, usually most voters vote for a single issue, right? So how many people are going to rescind their vote for Donald Trump based on the fact that he gave a pardon to Ross Ulbricht?
Very few.
Yeah, it seems like very unlikely that somebody's like, that's it, I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump. I mean, the people that hate him. The people
it
that like him
probably wouldn't get that much coverage.
Right.
Exactly. I don't think they wouldn't even know who. Most of them would even care or
So for those, but how many people, if Donald Trump, I'm not sure that they could sign a petition that says I'm willing to vote for Donald Trump if he commutes Ross Ulbricht's sentence. But I'll tell you this. I'll vote for Donald Trump if he commutes Ross Ulbricht's sentence. And I am willing to bet that there are other people that would do that. Like a lot of them. It's like 6 figures maybe. That's just a guess. So we got 6 figures on the petition here. And 6 figures worth of voters for a guy who won by the hair of his chinny chin is not a bad thing.
And lost New Hampshire. And one of the things I was thinking about is New Hampshire is such a great place. I mean, Ross has so much support in New Hampshire because of you guys, because of the whole everything that's going on in New Hampshire. Trump needs New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. He lost New Hampshire. And, the thing is, I would certainly campaign based on his criminal justice reform and other things he's done that, we could do it. And Ross would. Ross would go out and campaign for him. I think that he could potentially win New Hampshire. It was very close. By signing his name to a piece of paper and commuting a sentence that is evil, draconian, and un-American. And so that's what I'm hoping I can get to him to have him understand. Because the Libertarian Party came out officially at their convention calling for clemency for Ross. And just to clarify, we're not asking for a pardon. We're asking for a commutation. Which basically means you're still a felon. You can't own a firearm, and
you
so
did
forth,
your time. 6 years.
You're out.
Yeah.
You're out.
That's still 6 years too much.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's easier sell. A pardon means you're totally exonerated. Right. But we're not even saying that. We're just saying he's done enough.
Yep.
More than enough, and he's not going to go out and do it again. He's not an idiot, and he could actually contribute to society.
For sure.
So,
Well, he already has, and I'm sure he would continue to contribute to society.
He's dying to. He's got all kinds of ideas. And
right now he's busy teaching people to read in prison, which of course is great, but it's all he can do.
Right.
He could do more elsewise. But
he's tweeting from prison.
Yeah. He's writing letters,
sending
and
tweets out,
is then tweeting what he writes.
Yeah. But it's a totally different thing. And I think, I think that Trump does care about criminal justice reform. He's even talked about second chances and redemption in his State of the Union. He did commute Alice Johnson's sentence, and she was a drug dealer.
Really?
And I'm so glad he did. She had a life sentence, and she had served 22 years. She's a grandmother.
Oh, my God.
I think she's even a great-grandmother. And she was the person that Kim Kardashian went to bat for. And in any case, I know he's against drugs, and look, we're not promoting drugs. It's just we're saying, come on, this. And I have a whole list of things. Actually, I'll send you guys. But one of them, I think, is that libertarians and blockchain Bitcoin people, he would gain votes from just those two demographics alone.
There's 140,000 people who signed this petition that say so.
Yes.
Lynn, can you hang on here? I got a call that would like to talk to you. Let's bring Ryan on the line. He's in Chattanooga listening to WGOW FM. Go ahead, Ryan. You're on with Lynn Ulbricht.
That's Vernon.
Sorry, Vernon. You're on with Lynn.
Yeah. I totally agree. It was cruel and inhuman punishment, and Trump should commute a sentence. Personally, I would pardon him, but a commute would get him out. And I would gladly sign any physical petition to do that.
I don't think there's a physical petition. Is there, Lynn? It's just
it's online. It's online, but it's an actual petition. And Change.org has submitted petitions that have gotten people out or helped get people out. So you just go, Vernon, to freeross.org, and there's a big red banner on that website.
Right there at the top.
Freeross.org. Click it, and you're right there at the petition, and you just do it online.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ryan, thank you for the call tonight. Appreciate it.
Vernon,
I'm sorry. This still says Ryan in front of me. I didn't write it. Didn't change it. Thank you, Vernon, for the call, man. I appreciate that. Lynn, you want to stick with us? Continue here for one more segment?
Absolutely.
Lynn Ulbricht with us. You can go to freeross.org, sign the petition there, and share it, too, please, on your social media. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live. Dial toll-free. Bring up whatever you want here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Also, our Discord on-air call-in line rooms are there for you over at discord.lrn.fm. That's where you can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners and hosts of the show during, before, and after Free Talk Live over at discord.lrn.fm. With you tonight, Ian.
Richie Rich.
And Mark.
We're going back to Lynn Ulbricht. She's on the line with us from Arizona, having just visited her son Ross in federal prison down there. Now, Lynn, he's been in prison for 6 years for the dastardly so-called crime of running a website. 6 years of a two life plus 40-year sentence. How many times have they moved him? Because I remember you guys ended up selling a house down in Austin, which is where you had lived, to move up to New York because they were holding him in New York. But now it sounds like Arizona. How many times has he been shuffled around?
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's 5.5 years, but anyway, it'll be 6 in next. Not overstating anything. It's still plenty. Let's see. We moved to New York, and we were there for 4 years. Mm-hmm. He or near there. He was in prison there, and then he was transferred to Florence, Colorado, where the Supermax is. Mm. He was not in the Supermax, thank God, but he was in the step down from the Supermax, which is where the Bureau of Prisons puts its most violent gangs and dangerous criminals, short of the Supermax.
Bunch of nice guys.
Very dangerous place. Yeah, well, and actually there are some decent guys in there but there's a lot of very violent and crazy and dangerous people. There was a murder or two. There were beatings regularly, stabbings, and Ross was thrown in there not because he's violent or dangerous. His security score puts him in a camp. It's because of this life sentence that the judge gave him, and there's many people in there because of that their life sentences. Like a friend of his in there named Tony, who was arrested for selling marijuana 13 years ago and got life because of his third strike, and the prison is in Colorado. That's how insane our country is.
One of the legal states. Yeah, exactly. But now they've moved him to Arizona?
Yeah, what happened was Ross refused to assault another inmate. It was one of these things where he was being pressured by some inmates who decided this guy needed to be beaten up, and that Ross and this other guy had to do it. And Ross, he's like, no, I'm not going to beat up some guy. I don't do that, And so that put him in danger. He was able to get into protective custody, and they moved him to Tucson, which is a place that the Bureau of Prisons puts people who are basically targets in other prisons. And we're very happy about it because he's safe.
That's impressive resolve.
Safer. He's still behind bars. You never know. Bars. You never know what psycho guard you're going to meet next when you're in the custody of the state.
I live in a very strange world, so of course it's all relative.
Right.
You're right, but it's a lot safer.
Yeah, okay.
A lot safer.
Good.
And
now, do they keep him in a communications management unit where all of his mail is super scrutinized?
No. But it is scrutinized.
Sure.
But not the CMU.
Okay.
No, which is that'd be really hard. But he doesn't have email though, like other inmates do.
Interesting.
And that makes it tough. Well, that's because it's an internet crime.
Right.
Even though violent gang leaders who have nationwide networks and can organize riots have email, Ross doesn't get to have email.
Huh. Right, because the people who determine whether or not somebody can get email or not in prison know nothing about computers.
That's right.
And so they think that somehow Ross Ulbricht, because he's a computer guy,
hack it,
could just go in there and
magically take it all down, take down the system or something.
Throw up a firewall, and all the employees are out, and everybody's paychecks blocked up for the
swing the doors open from the cells too.
All the cells go open. I mean,
I've seen those movies.
Yeah, that's what would have to be a movie.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something that we haven't lost hope about, but it's a tough one to get. And it's so hard because everything's snail mail, and he's got such limited minutes. And that's one reason I plan to move here, because he needs a lifeline to the outside world. Mm-hmm. And so I've basically, my husband and I moved up to New York, then to Colorado, and now Arizona.
Incredible.
So, but we have an internet business ourselves, and we don't have little kids, and we can do it. It's hard, but we can do it. Other people can't do that, and it's terrible what they do to families.
Yeah, they separate them in many cases as far as they possibly can. Somebody else we'd interviewed years ago, Mark Emery, the so-called Prince of Pot from Canada, had been extradited by the Canadian government down to the United States, where he then faced trial for selling seeds over the internet. marijuana seeds a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
when it wasn't even illegal in Canada.
Right, it wasn't illegal in Canada what he was doing, but the Canadian government did the U.S. government a favor, and they rounded him up and sent him down there, and he ended up spending 5 years in prison down there. And of course, they put him in a prison in like Georgia or Mississippi, which was about as far as you could possibly get from his home in Vancouver, where his wife was. So if she wanted to visit him, she had to get on a plane and go all the way down to the southeast of the United States. It's like they do that on purpose.
It seems like
it's tough.
She's lucky she could get in.
And then
at
you
all.
can show up, and if they're on lockdown, that happened many times in Florence because of the violence. They lock it all down, and you show up from some other state and having saved for the trip, and sorry, out of luck.
You can't see your son.
Just can't do it.
Heartbreaking. It's terrible.
Yeah. I can say this. So, I mean, at this point, you guys are going for clemency, which means that Trump would change the sentence rather than giving a pardon.
Kind of like Obama did with Chelsea Clinton.
Right.
Or Clinton. Chelsea Manning.
Yeah. Maybe one day. But for me, I had an opportunity when I was in prison to either take it back on new evidence, get another trial, and try to, get some level of exoneration or whatever might go on, or I could take the gift the Florida Supreme Court had given me and go to work release and just, take it from there. I'd keep, whatever status as a convicted felon, but I'd be out very soon. I decided, to the bird in the hand was worth two in the bush, and that it was absolutely worth just getting out. Although it's not great being a convicted felon, it's a heck of a lot better than being an incarcerated felon.
That's right. I've got
a quick question based on the discussion that we've been having, and that is, to me, there seems to be a dichotomy between getting enough signatures on the petition to free Ross, and then also having it low key enough where it doesn't become a political football in the Trump administration. Meaning that if it's low key enough, he can grant Ross clemency and it won't be made a political issue. But in order to get it in front of him, you need a lot more than the signatures that you currently have. So
I don't know if Trump can. I mean, it's kind of like Mark said. I don't think he's going to lose his base over this. He could gain a lot of votes from people who, and actually Mark pointed this out, people who have given up on voting. And after the Ron Paul revolution have kind of lost, their passion, it could be reignited potentially. He could actually gain a lot of votes. So I think it actually would be good if, he did, if that happened. But I don't think he would lose his base. I don't think they're going to vote for a socialist because he commutes Ross's sentence.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Right. Republicans are going to either stay home or vote for Trump. They're not going to run out and vote for whomever it is that comes out in the 2020, which is likely to be, a fire-breathing socialist.
But the timing is tricky, though, right? Like, you want to get more signatures, but you also want to get it to Trump before, a certain time frame. So how do you know when the time is to say, all right, well, we didn't make it to 500,000, but we made it to 250. Let's take this now and do this now versus let's keep waiting and hoping. And then how do you get it in front of
I'd probably go, if it were a year from now, I'd probably do it now at 140.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still it's still pretty good.
Yeah. That's nothing to shake a stick at.
That's a lot of people.
Obama promised to answer any petition that got
100,000,
whatever's. Now, I mean, signatures. Now, that doesn't mean that necessarily
Trump did not make the same promise.
He didn't make the same promise, and it doesn't mean that you'd get the answer that you want to get or anything like that.
Right.
But it's hit a threshold that has existed in language up to this point.
How did it go real fast, Lynn? We're almost out of time here, but how was your conversation with Ron Paul? You had a brief chat with him at Anacapulco.
Yeah, very brief, very, very brief. He was quite distracted. So, it was fine, but and he's a very nice man, and I liked it that he called out about criminal justice reform in his talk.
Did he? Okay.
But, yeah, he did in his speech. But, it was more like, it's hard at conferences, as you guys know. So it was fine, but not substantive.
Keep in touch, Lynn. Let us know how this thing develops. Listeners, please take a moment. Go to freeross.org. The banner for the petition is right there at the top of the page. You can't miss it. It's in red. freeross.org. And if you're new to the Ross Ulbricht case, there's a great documentary linked there as well called Railroaded. That's Lynn Ulbricht. Thanks for the call tonight. We got more coming up here on Free Talk Live next.
Business owners, you want more customers? Accept cryptocurrencies. There's people all around you just waiting to spend money at your store. If only you would take it. I know, you've been waiting till someone else makes it easy. Well, good news. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com adds Bitcoin to your point of sale, totally free. Use the same equipment you already have, now with Bitcoin. And unlike credit cards, there's no fees. Let the guys at HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com bring new customers to your store. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're launching into the second hour of the program here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We've also got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Mark, we can get into the billionaire story. I don't know if we even really did much more than scratch the surface on that.
Not really.
But we can talk more about that in a little bit. Since we're on the topic of prison, if you're just tuning in, we just got off the phone with Lynn Ulbricht, the mother of Ross Ulbricht, who is serving 2 life sentences plus 40 years for the horrible crime of running a website, which is insane, but that's what's happening. And, of course, we talked to her about what's going on with Ross and how he's been moved to a new prison. And if you want to get more on what's happening with Ross, please go to the Free Ross website at freeross.org and sign that petition that's linked there right at the top. I actually sent a link out directly to the petition itself on our Free Talk Live social media on Twitter, twitter.freetalklive.com, on Mastodon at toot.freetalklive.com, and on Telegram at telegram.freetalklive.com. So you can link over directly to the petition there if you want and sign it. But since we've been talking about prison, let's keep going because we got some other prison-related stories. I mentioned that Obama, of course, had noteworthy thing that he did, and one of the the right things that he did, the correct things that he did toward the end of his term was he commuted the sentence of Chelsea Manning, who was sentenced to, I believe, like 37 years behind bars for basically telling the truth, for sharing with WikiLeaks what was top-secret information.
Being a whistleblower.
Right, being a whistleblower on the military. And Trump let Chelsea out, which was great news when it happened. Unfortunately, she's now back behind bars.
Oh, my.
You hadn't heard about this?
I think I saw some news story, but I didn't know. No, I guess I didn't.
This went down, I believe, it looks like March 8th. So news coming from the Associated Press out of Virginia. Former Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning, who served years in prison for leaking one of the largest troves of classified documents in U.S. history, was sent to jail Friday for refusing to testify before a grand jury in the WikiLeaks case.
Exercising her right to remain silent.
Yeah, it would be nice if you actually had a right to remain silent, but unfortunately, when a court wants you to testify, you don't have the right to remain silent anymore. I mean, you have the right, but they have the right to lock you up.
Yeah, she's exercising it.
Right. She's exercising her right to remain silent, and they are saying, well, you get to go to prison now. You get to go to jail until you decide to talk, basically. U.S. District Judge Claude Hilton ordered Manning to jail for civil contempt of court after a brief hearing in federal court in Alexandria in which Manning confirmed she has no intention of testifying. She told the judge she will, quote, accept whatever you bring upon me, unquote. Manning has said she objects to the secrecy.
I don't accept it. I don't accept it.
You personally don't accept
it?
Why
would you accept what the judge does? I mean, it's ridiculous. I will accept what you do.
Well, she's going to have to.
And I'm not testifying.
Yeah, well, the alternative is to fight your way out.
I think what she was saying was, Mark, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can do what you want to me.
It's just, say that instead.
Yeah. Well, it's just a different way of saying it.
I don't know that it is.
Civil contempt, there's no term limit on that too, right? They can just hold her.
Well, contempt is a funny thing. It generally there is no term limit on contempt, but in most places, and I don't know what the federal rules are on this, but like here in New Hampshire, if a judge sentences you to more than 6 months for contempt, that is subject to a review by a panel of judges.
Oh, okay.
So it basically goes to that judge's buddies to decide whether or not that judge was out of line in sentencing to more than 6 months. So that's why you'll see most judges will sentence to 6 months or less. you very rarely will see a contempt charge for more than 6
But in the
months.
case of refusing to testify, I mean, what they're probably going to do is pull her out in a week and say, how do you feel now?
Compel her to testify.
Well, she's been in solitary before, so, I mean, she knows what to expect. Once you've been institutionalized, it's not a big deal to go back in. And I suspect that's kind of where she's coming from here. She knows what it's like behind bars. She's seen some of the worst of it in her time in federal custody. And so she's just like, well, whatever. Yeah. I'm not gonna do anything.
They can make it real uncomfortable, but ultimately you're right.
Manning has said she objects to the secrecy of the grand jury process and has already revealed everything she knows at her court-martial. She said prosecutors have granted her immunity for her testimony, which eliminates her ability to invoke her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Quote, I will not participate in a secret process that I morally object to, particularly one that has been used to entrap and persecute activists for protected political speech, she said in a statement released after she was taken into custody. The judge said she'll remain jailed until she testifies or until the grand jury concludes its work. So, now I don't know how long grand juries can be impaneled for. I suspect it is a period of many months, but I don't know, if I'm not that familiar with the federal grand jury process. I've heard that sometimes they can be impaneled for an extra length of time, like, it's normally for X amount of time, but then that time can be extended if, for instance, whatever investigation is continuing or they're needed for a longer period of time. So this could be, another half a year. It could be another 18 months. I think they might. I feel like 18 months is a number that sticks in my head. But again, whatever I say here is basically almost pure speculation. So if you know more.
How often does this grand jury meet if they're meeting for 18 months? Once a month?
I don't know. If you know more about the federal.
How awful this is to get be called in to be on a
federal grand jury? Yeah.
Good Lord, it's a second job.
So if you know more about the federal grand jury process and how long it could potentially keep her in jail for, feel free to call in. Our toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Anyway, she's basically going to be there until she either testifies or until they finish with the grand jury. So I suspect she's choosing the latter and is just going to sit it off.
How much trouble could she get into if she just took the stand and then give the Senate answer of "I do not recall"?
Yeah, that was what I was wondering too. Because if she doesn't recall, that's an answer to the question. She's answering the question. She's not giving them anything useful.
Yeah,
but she's answering the question.
Or if she refuses to get sworn in or take the oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and it's like no.
I think you're going back for contempt if you don't take an oath.
Okay.
Manning's lawyers had asked that she be sent home to home confinement instead of jail because of complications that she faces in receiving gender-affirming medical care, because, again, she changed from Bradley Manning to Chelsea Manning while she was in prison. The judge said U.S. Marshals can handle her medical care. Prosecutor Tracy McCormick said the jail and marshals have assured the government that her medical needs can be met. Amy Birch, spokesbureaucrat for the Alexandria jail, confirmed that Manning had been booked. Sheriff Dana Longhorn said in a statement, quote, specific details about Manning's confinement will not be made public due to security and privacy concerns. We will work closely with the U.S. Marshals to ensure her proper care while she remains at our facility. And, of course, everybody knows that that's a bunch of BS. The care that you get inside these facilities tends to be very, very low quality, if you receive it at all. If they don't just ignore your pleas, oh, yeah, I broke my foot. I've known people who've, have had things break in jail and have gone without any kind of treatment for weeks, if not months on end.
Even pregnancies go uncared.
That happens. Manning says, quote, obviously prison is a terrible place. I don't see the purpose to incarcerate people. She, of course, served 7 years out of a 35-year military sentence for leaking the trove of military and diplomatic documents to the website WikiLeaks before then-President Barack Obama commuted her sentence. The WikiLeaks investigation has been ongoing for a long time. Last year, prosecutors in Alexandria inadvertently disclosed that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is facing unspecified sealed criminal charges in the district. Remember, we reported on that story here? I don't know if you were here for that, Mark, but I think it might have been during the wintertime when you were gone. But basically what happened was prosecutors accidentally revealed a document that they filed in another case that was unrelated to WikiLeaks.
I remember part of this, yeah.
Prosecutors filed a motion to, I think, basically, I forget the term, basically to make a thing secret. What's that called? suppress isn't the word that they use, but that's basically what's going on. It takes a document out of the public view. There's a certain word for it, and I'm forgetting what that is. Anyway, they made a motion to do that. And in that motion, they had copied it from a motion that they made in the WikiLeaks case for Julian Assange. They'd left the Julian Assange names in the document when it was supposed to be John Smith or whoever it was that they'd filed it in the case for. So they didn't do a find and replace correctly, and they accidentally...
They really did just copy and paste
Right. They literally copied and pasted, and they just screwed it up. And somebody in that case saw that, who was looking at that case, and was like, this is for Julian Assange. And then that came out. So that was the first indicator that they may have secret criminal charges being filed against Assange. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live. Dial on in toll free on this live Sunday edition. We've got time for you if you want to join us. Our number is 855-450 free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Also, the Skype username, Skype. Too much Skype in my life today. I had it in my head, and we don't do Skype anymore. Sorry, you can't call on Skype. I meant the Discord server where you can call in, and you'll sound better than Skype.
The Skype's pulled up. I can see it from here.
No, it's not. I quit that program.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely not pulled up. Anyway, go to discord.lrn.fm. That's discord.lrn.fm. As we go to your calls and thoughts, coming up, we'll check in on Pharma Bro, see what's going on with him. You've got an update on him, Richie. We'll get to that. But Sarah's on the line first in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I was at the Unitarian Church today, and I attended the second Sundays. They have the environmental group, so that's my only committee that I'm really interested in. And so they were talking about collecting rainwater. So I mentioned that in Los Angeles, they're having a bowl-shaped roof.
Are you trying to ban collecting rainwater now?
I mean, but that's a new...
No, I think she supports it.
Oh.
But there are some places where it's banned. I think, was it Oregon at some point?
Well, out west, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, they're figuring out ways. I mentioned that they have bowl-shaped roofs that collect rainwater, and then they also have like designs where it's sponges. You see like a landscape, the design, and it actually has sponges.
Well, that should definitely be illegal then.
No, it's a new thing. In California, they're just testing it out. And I just thought that New Mexico, our state, could really use that technology to recycle water. So
are there water shortage issues there in New Mexico?
Yeah, we had water shortages here forever.
Yeah, sure, it's a desert.
Yeah, it's always a drought.
So you want your city to collect the rainwater, or you want to make it okay for individual property owners to collect their own rainwater?
Well, both. I mean, use the bowl roof technology instead of the only way right now is it falls off the roof and there's a little
gutters
thing that captures the water.
Gutters.
A gully or something.
Gutters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that gutter, and it drains off the gutter, then it goes into the rain holder.
But if it doesn't go through the government processing facility, how can you be sure that their rainwater is safe to use?
People use it for gardening. It's like
what in the world are you gardening for in the middle of the desert?
It's something to do, Mark. They have a thing called xeriscaping, I think.
Here.
You can garden with cactuses and stuff.
There's a lot of people that have gardens.
Yeah, I think that might be the problem. I mean, there's humans trying to carry on human activity in the middle of a desert, presuming that somehow this is normal. I live up here in New England. Water rolls down the hills. Mm-hmm. It goes past us. We let lots of it go. I mean, there's so much water here, it just goes by.
We should import it to New Mexico.
But half of the country seems to just be obsessed with this stuff. And it's probably because they live in the wrong place.
Well, the thing is that we live in a drought where we have water scarcity. That's for sure. But this is where we live. LA has the same kind
you
of
act like you act like we don't have cars and moving trucks.
But no, No, but I just brought up the water. Technology is a good thing.
Technology is good, and it will make it so that we can live in the desert more and more as time goes by. And that may be a great technology.
Look at Las Vegas. It was basically total desert, and they turned that into a place.
Yeah, it's
doable. Water is expensive over there.
Right, water's expensive, and L.A. is stealing their water.
Here's what I want to know, Sarah, about these bowl-shaped roofs. Do these actually exist anywhere in reality at this point? Because I'm looking on the internet at them, and I mean, not that you have internet access because you don't, but looking here I'm trying to find a picture, and all of them are computer-generated. Like, here's what the technology looks like.
We call that vaporware on the internet. Things that don't exist.
Well, or conceptual. Let's give them some credit.
It is conceptual for sure. And I'm not a construction expert or anything like that, but this doesn't look like a good idea. I mean, so basically just imagine a house with just a big bowl, like with a flat roof on it. The house itself has a flat roof. The bowl itself is not a roof. It's just a big bowl sitting on top of this house, and the points at which they're connected are relatively small compared to the size of the bowl. So I mean, it almost seems like a big gust of wind is gonna lift this thing up and break it or something like that. I imagine it's going to be there with it's probably made out of concrete or something like that, but it's strange.
Are you saying it's inefficient then? Because other places have water collection tanks that basically collect the rainwater.
Yeah, I think it would work fine for collecting rainwater. I mean, it's basically a gigantic bowl on the top that's basically as big as your house on top of the roof of your house. So that's what we're talking about.
Why are you saying you don't think it's a get a good idea though?
Like I said, I'm not a construction expert. Just looking at it, it looks like something that could pick up a gust of wind and get knocked over. Basically, like you put a big satellite dish up, eventually wind is going to knock it around a little bit.
I'm a little more optimistic than you are.
Well, like I said, I don't know anything about construction, so maybe it's totally cool, putting a gigantic bowl up there that is in no way like aerodynamic necessarily.
Okay. Well, let's assume that the final construction is just like the second level of the house, but has that concave shape to it. So it would be blowing like to the side of a wall, but still have the bowl shape to collect the water.
You're saying the bowl itself would be down in the second level and not raised above the roof as they
theoretically.
In these?
Like if your concern is that the gust of wind might tip the bowl over, I'm saying if you could just like lower the bowl into the structure.
You could do that. That would be a way to deal with that.
And that might be, the second round of design. But I mean,
Sarah, thanks for the call tonight. What?
Really good. It's a start. I mean, it's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm glad you found an issue to be pro-freedom
like a real bowl? You know what I mean? It could be a shallow
Well, she may
bowl,
not be pro-freedom. She may want to force this bowl down everyone's throat. Do you think that every house should have this bowl on it?
Oh, that's a different question. I said allowed to have.
Well, the thing is, the solar panels are building code in California now. Everybody, all of the houses that you buy is going to have solar panels on it. That's it. So it's like you don't have a chance to have it crammed down your throat because there's no other house to buy in California. That's a new building code.
That's cramming it down the throats when you put
builders.
Right, when you put something in the building code that requires that a certain thing be built in a way that they say, that is cramming it down the throats of the customers who are buying the builders' houses.
Are you advocating that these bowls be mandated on people's homes as it stands, or just that it would be a good idea for people who need to collect rainwater?
Well, I'm just more concerned about coming up with ideas, sponges for, decorations, outside decorations, and to absorb water. I mean, all of these.
She's trying to avoid your question. She doesn't like answering questions. You have to ask her multiple times.
I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt on this call because I asked her if she wanted to.
She doesn't deserve it.
Okay.
Thanks for the call, Sarah. Toll-free number here. We don't want to hear the talking points anymore. Toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. You can't have a conversation. You can't answer a question. That's it. 855-450-FREE. We got other people who I'm sure would appreciate the time and conversation. 855-450-3733. What do you think about this bowl on the top of the house technology? Has anybody taken a look at this? Because so far, I can't find any real-life photos of this actually being implemented.
Go to themorganreport.com and receive updates and insights you will not find anywhere else on the web. You will discover how to grow and protect your wealth under all market conditions. The free Morgan Report provides interviews, webinars, question and answer sessions, plus mind-blowing videos. As David Morgan says, let my passion create your wealth. TheMorganReport.com. TheMorganReport.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Dial toll free. Join us right here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. Like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We're kind of talking about some jail/prison related updates. We heard from Ross Ulbricht's mother, Lynn, in the first hour. Had a nice interview with her. You can, of course, check that out if you're just tuning in. You can grab it later on our website over at freetalklive.com or subscribe to the podcast, and you'll have it delivered automatically to you via your favorite podcast client. With you tonight, it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
We also touch base on what's going on with Chelsea Manning. She's being sent to jail for an indeterminate time frame. Could be as long as maybe a year or more, depending on how long the federal grand jury is impaneled to investigate allegations about WikiLeaks. Chelsea Manning refusing to testify to the grand jury. She just didn't want to participate, and so the judge said, well, we're going to just put you in a jail cell until you either participate, you either testify, or the grand jury is no longer impaneled. So who knows how long that's going to be.
On moral grounds.
She was refusing on moral grounds. Right. Basically, she had said she'd already testified about what she did, and they don't need to, in her case or whatever.
And she didn't want to testify on a secret panel.
Right.
Right. She didn't like that secret court thing.
And I don't blame her. I think she's absolutely right. She's once again doing something heroic, putting herself on the line and her freedom on the line in order to protect the freedom of other people. In this case, perhaps Julian Assange or other people associated with WikiLeaks. As we know, the federal government is absolutely investigating that. As we continue with more updates, you've got an update on Pharma Bro.
Pharma Bro.
Martin Shkreli.
Oh, yeah, this guy, the man that everyone loves to hate.
And he kind of earns it.
Yeah, he does.
Kind of a jerk.
Being investigated for allegedly using cell phone to run company from prison. So I pulled this up because, I already had it, but after talking, with Lynn about Ross and how to be productive from behind bars.
Right. Just get an illegal cell phone.
Why not? Federal authorities said Friday they are investigating claims that Martin Shkreli has been running his pharmaceutical company from behind bars using a contraband smartphone.
Nice.
The U.S. Bureau of Prisons told the Associated Press it has opened an inquiry into whether the man nicknamed the Pharma Bro violated prison rules forbidding inmates from conducting business and possessing cell phones. So two violations there. Shkreli, 35, is serving a 7-year sentence for securities fraud at the Federal Correctional Institution at Fort Dix, New Jersey, a low-security prison complex about 40 miles from Philadelphia. He was found guilty of lying.
He's going to be spending a little time in a higher security system here.
I think so.
First off, okay, why is this an issue? Are there not cell phone jammers?
There are, yeah.
Why don't they have them at prisons?
The guards want to have their cell phones.
That's true.
What do they need cell phones for?
And because you don't expect the prisoners to have cell phones.
Well,
you don't need cell phone jammers where cell phones are contraband anyway.
The warden's going to want his cell phone.
Too bad. Everybody got along fine in prisons 15 years ago without cell phones.
Well, then the warden and the guards are pretty much in prison if their cell phone privileges are taken away
right.
as well.
That's what they would say back then, too, is I've spent, X number of years
behind
in prison.
Bars, yeah, but they get to go home at night.
Right, and I'm like, oh, wait, let's do that math again. You're spending 40 hours a week. Yeah. It's not really stacking up here, pal.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that, Mark.
They ought to jam if they've really got a problem with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's even going to be something they're going to consider doing at any point. Doesn't seem likely.
Well, they ought to.
So what happens, of course, is a prison guard will smuggle in likely a phone for one of these people and
get paid to do it.
So somehow, I don't know, maybe they tossed his room or whatever. Somebody got wind that he was using an illegal cell phone.
I'll bet he bragged about it at some point.
Could be.
He seems like the type.
Could be. It would be really unwise, but the cell phones are really pretty common in prisons these days.
Really?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
How do you know that? You haven't been in prison for 20 years.
Because there's a lot of stories about... There was a cell phone in prison when I was there, okay?
Wow.
And that was...
now, how
did they sneak that one in?
Now, how do they charge them?
End of 97 or beginning of 98.
How do they charge the phones?
At the work release. I don't know the answer to that.
Because you don't have like an AC adapter in the cell.
I watched convicts light cigarettes with bare wires before. Out of the, so
now there are some prisons where you can get like a television, right? So they must have power in some of the cells, right?
Of course they have power. They turn on lights.
I know that, but but accessible
like an
power, an outlet of some sort, right?
Yeah, you could. Yes, there were
Do they
plugs.
have TVs in the individual
Some
cells?
prisons allow TVs in cells,
Usually
if I'm not
just-
mistaken about that.
I would assume that would just be the common area.
Some do.
Some do.
Florida did not.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was a plug in the room or not, or whether people would rig it up so that I think you had to use your own batteries to play your radio, but you could have a radio.
Get a solar panel from the commissary just hanging out the window.
Unlikely.
Through the bars.
Is there more to the story on Pharma, bro?
Yeah, there's a few more paragraphs here. The Wall Street Journal reportedly this week that Skrelly had used a cell phone to call the shots at his drug company, Phoenix's AG, posting regularly to social media. See, there you go. And even firing the company's chief executive a few weeks ago. Skrelly's defense attorney, Benjamin Brafman, declined to comment.
This is great. This guy's just hanging out in prison. You're fired.
See, calling the shots.
He must feel like the big dog, right? Like he's got a cell phone in prison. He's running his business. Now, he's running a legitimate
he could probably
business.
rent it out, too.
Yeah, and he's running a legitimate business, right? Like he's not, I mean, whether you agree with what he does with his, business is another question, but whatever it is he's doing is purportedly a legal business.
On the outside.
On the outside.
But running it from the inside is the violation.
Is that actually illegal?
It didn't say illegal. It said violation of prison rules.
Oh, okay.
The violated prison rules forbidding inmates from conducting business and possessing cell phones.
Because I still helped when I was on the inside, and now I was just in jail, which isn't exactly the same thing as prison. It's usually for people who are there for less than a year. But when I was in jail for civil disobedience, I was still, consulting with you guys on a daily basis, basically on automation issues or whatever things needed to be kind of fixed.
Daily.
It was close to it. I was getting calls or making calls pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Maybe every other day.
Through the regular phone line.
Through the phone line, which of course they can monitor. So I don't think that there was any kind of rule against doing that because they certainly didn't say anything.
Well, that would be the prison phone, right? That would be the prison phone that they're allowed.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, the Bureau of Prisons said federal prisoners caught in possession of a cell phone face up to an additional year behind bars if convicted.
Yep.
Skrelly could also face disciplinary sanctions within the prison if he is found to have conducted business. So posting on social media probably not going to help him out with that. Like all correctional agencies, the BOP continues to tackle the problem of contraband being introduced into our facilities, including contraband cell phones, the agency said in a statement to the AP. The BOP continually
because they suck that bad at security and preventing these things from getting in. Yeah.
Right? Like
drugs, phones, whatever somebody wants. If somebody's willing to take a risk, and there always is somebody willing to take a risk for the right price, as far as one of the guards are concerned, either that or they're coming in the rectal cavities of the prisoners themselves from work release.
I wonder what constitute.
I wonder if that's how Mark's prison guy got his cell phone.
No,
you never know.
In this case, it wasn't an actual prison; it was the work release. So they just walked it in. They put it in their pocket and walked in.
Okay.
Which I could have too. I just wasn't dumb and wasn't going to take.
Ain't worth the risk.
No, it wasn't worth that. And when I got out of prison, it was 1998, and I'm like, "What is the deal with these cell phones?" My mother gave me one, and so I gave somebody the number, and they called me in the middle of frigging class. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Right? It's like, so I just left it at home. I didn't care about it. I don't need to call anybody that badly.
I was like that too with my first cell phone.
Yeah,
I didn't need it. It was handed to me as a gift.
Yeah.
All right, so
I love that. What constitutes being conducting business? So, Ian,
firing this chief executive probably
that does. I will agree with you. That's pretty close. But what if he only recommended the firing to somebody who's in his stead doing stuff? It's not like he's filling out the paperwork. So,
good question.
Ian, talked about how he helped with the blinking boxes and gizmos here and stuff, and we certainly needed some help. Sometimes I'd go down to the jail and just do an impromptu visit. Hey, what do I do with this thing? I've taken a picture of it.
Right, because you couldn't call me.
Right,
I had to call you.
Right, so I'd have to drive down to find out what was going on. That's just advice, right?
Speaking of people being held, well, there is an update on John Cantley. Longtime listeners will remember we reported on John Cantley, the British photojournalist who's been held by ISIS for more than half a decade. We'll tell you more coming up. It's Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Also, the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Coming up, we'll talk about how to make small talk less small and more meaningful. Coming up here in a little bit. Sounds like a very interesting story that you brought in, Richie. It's Ian, Richie, and Mark in the studio here tonight. By the way, I want to say thank you to Shooter, who is a Free Talk Live Silver Amplifier. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. And the idea is you send $5 a month, which is what the silver level is. So thank you, Shooter, for that. $5 a month that helps us advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live. Get on more radio stations around the country and bring new internet listeners on board, exposing new people to the ideas of freedom. You'll get some cool perks as an amplifier. Get a list of what those things are. Get a list of how we're spending the money over at amp.freetalklive.com. And you can sign up with PayPal, credit card, or Bitcoin, BTC. It's amp.freetalklive.com. As we continue, by the way, there's been some email troubles with the AMP signups this week. So if you signed up and you didn't get a welcome email, that's because there's some kinks in the tubes at the moment, and we're trying to figure out what's going on with that. So be patient, and we will get to you, and we'll take care of you. So it's amp.freetalklive.com. Mark, you were going to tell us a story during the break. Do you want to tell that story on the air? Can you tell that story on the air?
I don't see why not.
All right. So we were talking about prison.
I have no idea why we were talking about prison.
Smuggling. We were talking about smuggling phones into prison, and then that somehow led to you talking about smuggling cigars while you were in the Florida state prisons. It's probably the statute of limitations has expired on this, so I imagine you can talk about it. But you were working at the guard canteen, meaning that you sold snacks and cigarettes and stuff like that to the guards. So there was like a special little hut or whatever that they bought that stuff from, and you ran that thing.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear this played in front of me when I'm going up for my clemency in front of the governor this year or next. But I'll tell you the story. It is amusing. So at some point, a lieutenant, I'm not going to give his name, but a lieutenant or a captain, I'm not sure what his rank was at the time. I'd seen him as both. He got sick and tired of seeing these plastic tips that were on Black and Mild cigars. Black and Mild cigars, like Newports, were very popular in prison. Mm-hmm. And these are cheap cigars that you buy at a gas station.
Right next to the cigarillos.
Yeah, they're cheap. And it's got a little plastic tip on it, and they just because smokers throw things on the ground.
Yep.
Right? And he got sick and tired of seeing these things on the ground, even though we have a whole crew of people whose job it is the next morning to go around and pick up trash that they find. But nonetheless, he was sick of it, so he said, banned. Outright. Banning them all, no more in the canteen, sick of it.
Okay.
So,
and this is the prisoner canteen.
The prison inmate canteen.
Okay.
Well, he wouldn't and couldn't ban the sale of them at the officers' canteen. Mm-hmm. And he was a smoker, and I'm sure he wouldn't, do that for the officers anyway. So, what difference does it make, right? Well, I always kept them stocked because every once in a while an officer would want them. So every week I then began, the demand for cigars was quite high immediately. Mm-hmm. So at first I was just sneaking them out of my pockets and stuff like that and trying to figure out ways, and people were like offering...
Because they didn't shake you down every day after you left the canteen?
No, by no means.
Wow. See, we got a pat down every single day leaving the kitchen in jail.
Well, you had more people in the kitchen. It was just me, and I left at different times, depending on what needed to be done. So at first I'm just, bringing some out for some friends or whatever, and no one seems to care just so long as, they're banned in the canteen.
What were you getting for them?
It ended up to be a box that was 80 cents was going for something like $5, $3.
Okay.
Wow. I can't remember what it was.
Not a bad markup.
Yeah, it was $1 a cigar, so $5. So 80 cents for the pack, $5 for the.
And ultimately, no cost to you except for the risk involved, right? The
I had to recycle money back in and keep buying these things, but no one ever caught on that I was where all these cigars are coming from.
Right, you're ordering cigars through whatever commissary supply service for the prison guard commissary, but you were selling them out the back. to the convicts. So the money was still going from the convicts into the prison guard commissary, but nobody was the wiser.
Right.
Basically.
So they began to suspect.
For all the prison guards knew they were one of the other prison guards.
The other guards were buying them.
Right. And I developed a system where I was selling them at like $2.50 a pack to the Vietnamese mafia, as we referred to them.
And then they'd resell them.
And then they would resell them. And I didn't have, I was none the wiser. These guys didn't talk either. They knew how to keep their mouths shut. You know why? Because they barely spoke English.
So they protected their source, basically.
Right. So much so that they had created this hollowed out radio, right? We had these radios called a Super 2. You can look it up online, Super Tuner, something like that, Super Tuner 2, and you'll see this large radio that was very popular in
This is like a boombox kind of thing?
Not quite that big, but, smaller, one speaker.
Okay, gotcha.
And they hollowed this thing out, took all the internal parts out of it, and made it so it played with a much smaller speaker, and I would just put 2 packs of cigars in there, and then I'd walk out, because they began getting wise to me. The officers, I get some more shakedowns, kind of looking to see. No one ever said, Mark, where are these cigars coming from? But I was getting more attention, and I was getting nervous. So the guys are like,
didn't see the little white tips littering the ground still?
Yeah, I imagine they did. So the Vietnamese guys, they were helping me out by, giving me this super tuner. One time, I'm walking in, and now, by the way, the one of them got his room moved to the next dormitory over from mine so that we could pass it through the window, and no one would ever see me move this stuff. So no other convicts, nothing. Because the secret to committing crime, if you're going to commit crime, is keep your damn mouth shut.
Right.
Yep.
You don't need to tell anybody about it. You don't need to do anything. So
don't need to post it on social media.
Right. You do not. Just keep your mouth shut. So, I was getting ready to go this. I'm walking into the dormitory. I got my radio in my hand, and the officer's like, Edgington, give me that radio. I'm like, oh, God, this is it. So he takes it, and he pushes the button, and, rock and roll music begins playing. And he's like, why isn't this on country? I said, because I don't listen to that garbage. And so he changes it over to whatever the country station was in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and then keeps my radio.
Oh, man.
So the Vietnamese guy's like knocking on the window. I'm like, I don't have them. He doesn't have enough English to really understand where the cigars are. I'm like, just hold on. Yeah. Just hold on. At some point or another, after it's like dinner time or something, I then go get my radio. Give me that. And I go, and then I break it out and get the cigars out. There was a hair-raising hour or so where the officer has all of those cigars in this radio. And fortunately, it played some way.
And the Vietnamese mafia wants their product, too.
Yeah, these guys probably would not have slit my throat. And I'd say probably because I had been a very good source up to that point.
Yeah, they made a lot of money off of it.
And when I say a lot of money, we really did make quite a bit of money. At some point, I had moved $10,000 out of that prison. And we had, I had invested in things and, grown my nest eggs for when I got out. And
Now, wait, how did you get the money out of the prison? I mean, it's one thing to sell something in the prison so you have, money within the prison, but how did you actually smuggle it out?
I had developed a certain level of political influence, right? And so I would keep my keys on me. They were never allowed to take my keys. Well, my cantina for the officers was right next to the inmate visiting park. So I'd go in during the middle of visit, get the cash, stick it in my pocket, come back out, and nobody would be the wiser. They would just never care.
Oh, so your mom would be visiting you.
Yeah, I'd just give her...
You'd then go into your canteen, get a wad of cash, and give it to your mother.
Correct. Like
wow.
$300 or $500 or whatever I'd managed to scrape together in that period of time.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
These are new stories. I've heard a lot of the prison stories, but I love hearing the new ones.
Yeah, well, you had to, at some point, you had to be kind of cool about these things.
Oh, yeah,
man. You do things like you're supposed to do them.
Yeah.
Like everything's fine. And usually it was like, first off, I think the first time I did it, an officer wanted something out of the canteen while I was visiting. So I'm like, no problem. So I go in there and I'm like, here's the cash. This is now's my opportunity. So I slide in my pocket. I give him whatever he wanted, cigarettes probably, because it's always the addictive stuff. And then I come out and I give my mom some money. And she's like, this is great.
And they weren't observing close enough to notice you transferring a wad of cash into her hands?
No, you be careful. But there's no problem with her having as much cash as she wants.
Sure.
The problem is
sliding it across the table.
Yeah, basically. Right. And I don't even know that there would be a problem with her handing me a wad of cash. And me holding on, like if she wanted Mom, I'd like to hold on to several $100s
during the visit,
during my visit in the pocket or something like that. I'm not sure that'd be an issue.
Interesting.
So, that's how the stories broke down. But
Story out of the New York Times, an update that I was just happened to be having a conversation last night off the air with people here in the studio, and for whatever reason, John Cantley came up, and I think we were talking about ISIS and their horrifying videos of murdering people and all that, and that led to me mentioning John Cantley, and I was like, you know what, I wonder if he's been in the news, and so I searched his name, and last month, the story in the New York Times says more than 6 years after he was abducted in Syria by jihadists, John Cantley, a British journalist, is believed to still be alive, according to a British government official this week. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that because we followed John Cantley's videos. He was kind of like a glimmer of hope in what was an absolutely devastating and disastrous, horrifying situation that continues over in the Middle East with people taken hostage and executed in horrifying ways. We'll tell you more about what's going on with him, allegedly, coming up here in moments. And you can take control with us on Free Talk Live.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can dial in toll-free here. Bring up whatever you want. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. With you tonight, it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
Coming up, John Cantley may still be alive, according to a British government official. We've been kind of following John Cantley for the last several years here on Free Talk Live since he was taken captive allegedly by ISIS, and ended up becoming their face. Their English-speaking face of their propaganda videos. So we thought that he might have been killed because he hadn't been seen in a number of years, but there may be an update on that. So we'll share that with you coming up. Plus, Mark, you have a story that we barely got a chance to start in the first hour, and then we ended up talking with Lynn Ulbricht for most of the first hour, which led us to discussions about prison-related news, like Chelsea Manning being sent back to jail, and Pharma Bro apparently still running his business from a smuggled cell phone in a cell. So those are all things we've covered tonight. Our toll-free number, again, 855-450-FREE. But let's go first to the phones and to David in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, David.
Hey, yeah. First of all, remember I told you that I used to watch at length. There was 3 or 4 different guys that were broadcasting live video out of prison, out of Florida and one other state. I don't know if it was Alabama or Mississippi, I don't remember, but there were 3 or 4 different guys on Periscope with cell phones, and they were sitting there, they were on their cell phone doing filming while they're talking to the guard.
Wow.
So, anyhow, you got a caller the other day that said they heard Sarah talking to Rush Limbaugh. That wasn't Sarah, that was another daffy chick here in New Mexico. There's a lot that sound like that.
Okay.
And the elephant in the room, while this anti-Semitism thing is still on the front page with the Ilhan Omar and Tlaib and the things that they said, stuff like that. Historically, meaning going back 3 decades, whenever I have felt like I wanted to criticize somebody and they happen to be Jewish, I was always in fear of doing it. So, because you're going to be labeled either an anti-Semite or a self-hating Jew, and so there's been an actual fear thing, an intimidation thing for decades of anybody who wanted to criticize somebody that was Jewish. And the elephant in the room is, and I'd like you to comment on this. When I look at our government and I look at the names and I look at the percentages of their demographic, whether this person is a WASP or they're a Catholic or they're black or whatever, and I look at their percentages represented in our government and in the other power structures in our company, and I compared to their segment of percent of population in the general population of the country. For instance, like I said, the Jewish population is like 2% of the U.S., but they're, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but it looks like it's 10%, 20%, even 30%, depending on where you're at, of the power structure in any given body, like our government. And so
30% of representatives are Jewish?
Well, put it this way: just listen to the media, listen to the radio, watch television, look at the authors on books, etc. Television shows, movies, etc., etc., etc. There's no arguing that there is a highly inordinate percentage of Jewish control behind all of that. And so the question is, what does that mean? And it's no different than asking the question, if I'm a black person and I'm 20% of the population or 30%, or if I'm in the South in the old days and I'm the majority, yet I have no say, no control, no power position whatsoever, and this is after slavery. There's something to be said for that argument, and so there's also something to be said when any other demographic gets an inordinate amount of power. There's something to be said about it, and there's a legitimate question there. And so it's when you look at the media, it's in your face that the Jewish population has an inordinate amount of control.
What's the point
compared to the?
Can we focus? Can we focus on dismantling the ideas that they're espousing rather than what their nationality or religious background?
Right. Like I fail to be concerned about this because I heard a bunch of this crap from Chris Cantwell last night. I heard very similar claims from him. And, I'm sorry, people are individuals. So what is whether or not some Jewish people have power have anything to do generally with Jewish people? I don't understand the point.
Let me answer your question by turning it around. What difference does it make that 95% of the power structure in the United States has historically been white, has even been WASP? What difference does it make?
It doesn't make any difference because they're all people in search of power over others. So why does it matter what their religious belief or ethnicity is?
I'm with Ian. Who cares?
It makes a difference because it usually means something. It usually means something, and the question, the issue is finding out what it means. So, in other words, there's a red flag. I see something.
Okay. Well, it sounds like what it means is that some people who are Jewish have great connections or money or whatever, and they're able to make these things happen more often than some of their competitors.
If they're more likely to be journalists, it means they're good writers. Or if they're more likely to be...
No, it does not mean that they're good writers. It does not mean that they're good writers because there is virtually no good writing that I see in this country or worldwide.
Journalism isn't what it used to be, that's for sure.
Yeah, it ain't what it used to be. It's all a bunch of crap. Media is basically crap. Oh, let me give you a little side-handed compliment. You're one of the only media programs worth listening to anymore, okay? So, there is good stuff out there, but the majority of it, the vast majority of it, is absolute crap.
So if an individual espouses to rule over us, again, what difference does it make what their ethnic background is? Shouldn't we focus on the idea that they're trying to rule over us?
Ask the Nazis that. What difference, Adolf Hitler, does it make whether somebody's Aryan or not?
I don't think it does. If they're trying to rule over me,
it doesn't make any difference. You're not refuting the point if you're trying to.
I am refuting the point. Adolf Hitler did not recruit black people. Adolf Hitler did not allow black people into his organization. So there's something. I smell something there, Adolf Hitler. Something's going on here. And so whenever that pattern repeats, no matter who the demographic is, that raises a red flag. What is going on?
What is going on then?
I'm missing the conspiracy here, I guess, and you're not really tying it together for me.
I think you're smarter than that.
Well, you're going to have to tie it together here for me because I must not be that bright. So, what's going on? What are you alleging?
Well, I don't believe.
It's not like he's Jewish. He doesn't have the IQ for it.
Oh.
Say what?
I said he's not like he's Jewish. He doesn't have the IQ for it. Lay it out for us.
Lay out the conspiracy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. What's the problem? I guess we're presuming that Jews have somehow infiltrated the media in the last, 3 decades is what your proposal is. I'm not sure that's true, but all right.
It's not just the last. Obviously, it's not just the last 3 decades. It goes back way, way, way earlier than that. But
okay. Again, presuming that's true, now what?
It's a problem because it's always been a problem whenever
because the media has a now pro-Jewish bias.
You keep talking over me, and so I start to say something, and then I hear you talking over, and I got to stop, and so that message doesn't get across, and then I got to ask you what it is you just said. So let me shut up and ask you, what is it you just said the last time?
Are you saying that there is the problem is that there is now a pro-Jewish bias in the media?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am.
And are you afraid to compete with the pro-Jewish bias in the media by starting up your own?
I'm not really afraid to. Forgive me, I talked over you. Am I afraid to compete? And then you added on more after that.
Oh, to compete with the Jewish media. Like, could you start your own media organization that doesn't have a Jewish influence? Like
I don't want to compete with them. I don't want to compete with them. But they influence my life, and I don't want my life to be influenced by the things.
I guess stop watching their media then. Thanks for the call tonight. Nope. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE like freedom. You don't have to watch if you don't want.
I've been doing media for going on 20 years now, and no one's ever asked me if I was Jewish or not. I mean, they can pretty much tell my ethnicity by looking at me, but they wouldn't be able to tell whether I was Jewish or not. No one's ever asked me that question.
I think there's a fear of just coming out and being anti-Semitic, especially on national radio. So
you mean he was afraid of that?
Yeah, you got to dodge around.
He is Jewish, by the way.
Oh, is he? More coming up here in moments. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free, bring up what you want here. Our number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. With you tonight, it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
Bitcoin.com is a place you can go to learn about Bitcoin. If you are new to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, then go over to Bitcoin.com. They've got a great Bitcoin Academy there that'll take you through the basics. Plus, you can learn about how to choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy some Bitcoin, and how to spend your Bitcoin. You can learn all that over at Bitcoin.com. Plus, read the latest news headlines or engage with the Bitcoin community on the Bitcoin forum. It's all at Bitcoin.com. Again, that's Bitcoin.com. As I said, there's a little bit of potential good news for John Cantley, or rather about John Cantley, a British journalist who was taken captive by ISIS back in 2012 and had been since seen in several propaganda videos. This, according to the New York Times story. The story's from a month ago, but I just happened to search for John Cantley's name last night online and found that there's an update here, because we haven't talked about him in a while.
Right, the news isn't exactly on top of this story, so if they he's not the hottest topic, but we keep an eye on him.
Glad to see.
We're worried about him.
Well, worrying doesn't make any difference, right. So I wouldn't describe myself as worried.
We like to keep up to date.
But I would like to see good news about John Cantley. Let's say that. I would like to see him not be beheaded. I would like to see him eventually get out from the custody of the ISIS people. And he's been seen in several propaganda videos made by the Islamic State, also known as ISIS or ISIL, but the last one was released more than 2 years ago. On Tuesday, Ben Wallace, Britain's Minister of Security, told journalists at the Home Office briefing that Mr. Cantley was thought to be alive, though he didn't disclose how the government might have knowledge of his condition. The Islamic State has held Mr. Cantley in a series of locations before moving him to a prison next to an oil installation near the Syrian city of Raqqa, where he became one of 23 Western captives held at the site in 2 cells divided by sex. If he is still alive, he's one of the few people who might be able to tell what became of the other inmates in the underground gulag that held them, including many hostages whose families know little about their fates. Cantley, who is a freelance photographer, was taken hostage in November of 2012, along with American journalist James Foley, who filed for Global Post and Agence France Presse. After leaving an internet cafe in the Syrian town of Benesh, they drove toward Turkey, but armed men forced them to stop 25 miles short of the border and then abducted them. A majority of the Europeans, including French and Spanish citizens, were released for multi-million euro ransoms that were paid by their governments. But Britain and the United States are among the few countries that hew to a strict policy of not paying for hostages, arguing that doing so finances terrorist groups and encourages more kidnappings. When it became clear that neither country would pay for its citizens, the militants began killing them, starting with Mr. Foley, who was beheaded with a knife in 2014, a killing shown in a gruesome video released by the Islamic State. And
it was awful.
And here on Free Talk Live, we actually did cover a lot of these videos back when they were being released. It was uncomfortable to do it, but I thought it was important to do that here. I didn't end up watching all of them because some of them were just so horrifying. I had to look away. I was not interested in seeing, I'm not titillated by gore. I'm not interested in it, but at the same time, I wanted to see if these videos were legit because some were saying that they were fake. Some were saying that
there was that one that looked, there
was more than one that looked very Hollywood-esque.
Produced by the CIA.
Looked very produced, very professional, not just somebody with a video camera shooting a decapitation, but somebody with multiple cameras with an editing deck cutting together a multi-cam video, very good-looking quality video of these murders being committed. One of them was particularly fake-looking because they actually cut away at the specific
just
moments.
At the moment that you would see, it looked like he did, took a knife, saw it at the neck for a fraction of a second, and then it flashed away before you could see any blood or anything like that.
Yeah, it was real weird. But then later they ended up releasing some videos that did not cut away and were very grotesque and very...
They got the message.
Very convincing. So if they were faked at one time, I don't think all of them were faked. But either way, eventually Cantley was appearing in videos, as they're going to describe here in a moment. Now, he didn't appear in the killings videos. He appeared in videos that were kind of propaganda
recruitment
from their side to explain their side of things. In total, 3 Americans and 3 Britons were killed the same way, and recordings of their deaths sent shockwaves around the world and pushed the Obama administration to intervene in a conflict that it had, they say, tried to avoid. Cantley escaped that fate, and instead he was used, presumably under duress, in Islamic State propaganda videos, releasing a lecture series in which he criticizes the Western response to the group. In one, he's seen in an orange jumpsuit. Actually, that was in more than one. Discussing the fates of his cellmates. In others, so that's where they started him, was the orange jumpsuit at just a nondescript desk with a black background behind him. So you didn't know where he was. But then they ended up actually putting him in clothing, normal civilian clothes, and presented him as a war correspondent holding a microphone. But he appears increasingly gaunt and pale, suggesting mistreatment. He was last seen in a video recorded during the battle to liberate the Iraqi city of Mosul from the Islamic State's control in December of 2016, at the scene of an attack in which the militants...
That's more than 2 years ago.
That's right. Had wiped out a group of Iraqi soldiers in armored vehicles. Cantley was shown walking through the carnage, at one point making fun of the dead. He remarked as he passed a helmet lying on the ground, quote, "This used to belong to an Iraqi soldier. I don't think he's going to be needing it now, huh?" But since then, there's been no sighting of Cantley, and many believed that he was dead. The Islamic State, which at its height controlled large parts of Iraq and Syria, is pinned down in a 1.5-mile-wide outpost in the village of Baghouz in a bend in the Euphrates River in northeastern Syria. Officials with an American-backed Kurdish-led militia fighting to capture that stronghold said Tuesday that they didn't know if Cantley was alive, but they confirmed the Islamic State was holding numerous other hostages, including dozens of the militia's own soldiers.
Let him walk out in exchange for the hostages.
That has meant that the operation to take the area has stalled as military commanders struggle with how to move forward without endangering the lives of either the hostages or the civilians trapped inside that pocket. In announcing a decision to withdraw American forces from Syria, President Trump suggested in December the group had been defeated, though he and other officials later qualified that assertion and delayed the pullout.
Well, they're pretty darn defeated. I mean, if they're in a 1.5-mile area, they're defeated.
He completely reneged on the pullout, too, didn't he?
That's what they said here.
Not completely. He's
delayed it.
Yeah, delayed it.
He and the members of his administration have described the group as defeated, wiped out, absolutely obliterated, and in its final throes. The Islamic State is at its lowest point in years by nearly every measure. The area it holds, the attacks it carries out, the number of foreign fighters it recruits. But analysts who study the group point out that it remains far more powerful today than it was when the United States withdrew its troops from Iraq in 2011. In Senate testimony on Tuesday, General Joseph Votel, chief of the U.S. Central Command, said that, quote, hard-fought battlefield gains can only be secured by maintaining a vigilant offensive against a now largely dispersed and disaggregated ISIS that retains leaders, fighters, and resources. And the story goes on a little bit, but it's more of an update on ISIS than it is John Cantley. So I don't know. They're saying they don't know where the information is coming from. You know, there's no source for this, but somebody within the British government said they believe Cantley is still alive.
Well, they haven't. We don't know that he's dead.
They haven't published proof he's been executed or whatever. So,
well, if they killed all the other hostages, what did he do to stay that execution?
He did their bidding. He became their correspondent, their propaganda arm.
That was 2.5 years ago.
It's true.
Yeah, that was.
What has he done for them lately?
Yeah, good question. More coming up in moments. Your calls and thoughts are welcome on Free Talk Live, the live Sunday edition. Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm. Free Talk Live, inviting you here if you want to join us. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Tonight it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
Sure, you check out more of Richie on his show, The Anarchist Experience.
AnarchistExperience.com.
AnarchistExperience.com. It is a weekly podcast.
Yes, sir.
And you have a co-host.
Yeah, he should be back next week. So
Were you? Did you take a week off, or did you do it by yourself?
I did by myself the last 2 weeks.
Right
He was on the ranch in California.
So you guys cover different things, anarchist perspectives on them?
Pretty much.
Kind of thing?
The pro-liberty, pro-freedom message. ANCOMs hate us because, well, we take the
anarcho-communists.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the argument between socialists and libertarians, who gets to call themselves an anarchist, is the dumbest argument on the internet.
Okay.
You can check him out over at anarchistexperience.com. And if you are a liberty-minded person, there is a great website you ought to be on, liberty.menu. If you're a content creator, if you're a business, if you are an events coordinator, you can post your thing that you do, the thing you want other liberty-minded folks, whether they be anarchists or voluntarists or libertarians, the thing you want them to know about, put it up on liberty.menu and you might get some new business because why not? It's free. Go to liberty.menu and it will cost you nothing but the time it takes to submit your items to the site. And then you'll be on the map and then other people will find you, hopefully, and that might make you a little bit more money. Or if you're a content creator, might get you a little bit more attention. Go to liberty.menu. You can use code FTL and get a special listener badge for you. So, Mark, at the very beginning of the show, you had brought in a story you really wanted to cover, and then we ended up talking with Lynn Ulbricht for most of the first hour, which was much better. But it's always nice to have Lynn on the show. But the story was about British billionaires who are just like, screw it. They're leaving. They have left Great Britain for tax havens.
That's right. According to Yahoo.com here, the news section, nearly a third of British billionaires have either moved or are relocating to tax havens, where some have broken UK law by bankrolling political parties. So actually, some of them have actually given money to political parties back in the UK. So, about a major investigation said on Thursday. The Times newspaper published a series of reports detailing allegations of Britain's ultra-rich hiding billions of pounds from the UK Treasury and taxes over the past decade. The report came out days after the government drew public fury for delaying a vote on proposed legislation aimed at ending secret company ownership in offshore territories.
Well, we must render unto the Queen what is the Queen's.
That's right. Well, none of that crap's the Queen's. That's really the problem here is the presumption that the UK government owns these people's income. But whatever, if it's okay for the rich to be taxed, it's okay for you to be taxed, and that's how this little tax livestock farm works. Okay, all of us argue about who who they should be going after and all that stuff. Look, I was in prison for 8.5 years. The inmates never fought the guards. They always fought each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's set up, people.
Yep.
It's set up so that you all go after each other, not the people who actually are in charge. I mean, you can argue about who's in charge, but you never go after them.
There's a little comic that has a picture of the people with torches and pitchforks, and the king looks worried, and the king's advisor goes, "Don't worry, you don't have to convince them to stop. You just have to convince them that the pitchfork people want to take the torch people's torches away."
And vice versa, right?
And vice versa.
Right. So the Times said that 28 out of the 93 British billionaires it found through public records have moved to tax havens or are in the process of relocating. And
it's a lot nicer weather in those tax havens, I bet you, too.
Well, that's the thing, is you can't convince some people that this is going to happen. But you look, if you raise taxes on the wealthy leave. They don't need – look, they're not stuck in the town that they're in because they're a plumber, and all the people that know that they're a plumber are in Sheboygan, where they are, and that's where their business is. They can pick up and move and do their business from anywhere and make money in a better place where they can keep more of their money.
I think it should also be pointed out that there's nothing special about being a billionaire, regardless of where you start from. So
what do you mean there's nothing special about it? I mean, you've got $1 billion.
Well, I mean, yes, to get to that point, yes. But if you're stuck in the town you want to be in and you want to be a billionaire, there is a path to that should you choose to take it.
You mean if you aren't a billionaire and you want to be a billionaire?
Right.
I mean, it's not an easy path.
It is not an easy path, which is
not everybody's going to make it.
That's true. But there's
at some point they will. They'll devalue the dollar to the point that, look, I'm a trillionaire.
That's true.
I've got it right here on the wall. I've
10 trillion. There's 10 trillion right there.
Right. I can't see it from here.
10 trillion Zimbabwe dollars.
We have 10 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, and half of it, since it's on the studio wall, half of it's mine. That gives me $5 trillion. You're
going to have to fight me for it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I will not referee that.
Well, it's not going to go. It's not going to take long.
It won't last. Yeah.
Mark goes to jiu-jitsu class a couple of times a week. Ian eats frozen dinners. So, I ultimately, either you have to create a society that disallows people from moving away from the plot of land they were born on.
Build a wall.
Well, that's a possibility. Or you create a society that robs people that have made money in your society as they leave. Or, the rich people just pick up and leave. Up to this point, we have not been willing, and by the way, you're never going to create a society that actually goes after rich people, because rich people are the ones who make the rules. But if you do manage to get, one of these politicians in that is promising to go after the wealthy, to
like Bernie Sanders,
add a new tax. Warren is the one who's proposing the wealth tax, which is a tax on holdings, not on income. Just fascinating. And it's the presentation sounds so reasonable when Vox gets on board and makes the nice video and shows the disparity between rich and poor and all that stuff. The ultimate question is, look, what difference does it make how much money somebody else has? What matters is how well you're doing. If you're doing okay, it doesn't matter that Bill Gates has billions of dollars, or that Warren Buffett is hoarding wealth, or Elon Musk is ostentatious, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
None of that stuff matters. What matters is, how's your life going? Are you doing all right? Do you have your cell phone? Do you have a roof over your head? You got a car? Well, okay.
For a lot of people, the answer is no, because Warren Buffett is hoarding all that wealth. That's the claim.
No, because they don't have a job.
Okay.
They just
or no financial intelligence and no ability to save, the habit of using vices and getting into debt, all of these things together. I just saw a story this week that U.S. Credit card debt is at record high levels. I mean, it is higher now than it's ever been, apparently.
Well, evidence that they've got the things that I just talked about: a cell phone, a roof over their head, and a car.
They may not own those things, though.
Well, I recommend paying off your bills as quickly as you can. And that's a good way to make some more money. Then you're not paying interest to other people. You're paying it to yourself.
And they could do that if you tax the rich and then give them more handouts.
Well, what are the handouts, though? When they do tax the rich, and they do, what do we get?
I don't know.
Nothing. Nothing.
Well, I don't want anything.
I know, but the proposal is that you tax the rich and hand it out, and they don't. They're not going to.
They are talking about UBI, this idea of a so-called universal basic income where everybody would get a handout. They would get a check from the federal government. And obviously it's going to be rich people that get taxed for that, or they're just going to print money out. Either way, everybody's going to end up paying the price.
It's now being proposed by, is it Andrew Yang, presidential
candidate?
I've
heard that he's a Democrat guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see
$1,000 a month handed out.
Let's see the proposal rather than $1,000 a month. How are you going to pay for it?
Tax the rich.
Increase
I don't know
inflation.
that you could. Like exactly how rich and how much are we taxing them?
Inflation tax.
Just inflating the money?
Inflate the currency.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It just inflates the value of the money, and pretty soon $1,000 is worthless again.
90% wealth tax on billionaires.
Well, I mean, they already paid a tax to make the money that they made, and then you tax them on their wealth at 90%. And plus, don't forget the sales tax, the gas tax, and the property tax, and all these other things. Pretty soon, they're paying to live here, and then they leave.
Just don't let them leave.
Right, that's the problem. Is they're going to leave.
All right. You're welcome to join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, live Sunday night edition of Free Talk Live, 855-450-3733. If you're upset at rich people, we'd love to hear from you. And this is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live, and you're invited here. If you want to dial in, the toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We've got video clips, and you can go to watch those on our Clips channel on YouTube. It's actually not our channel. It belongs to Eric Freerock from Liberty Bits. But we're helping him promote it because he's helping make some great clips of Free Talk Live and putting them up there. Because we don't want to spend our own time on that because we don't have enough time to do it. It takes time to do video editing. It is not a quick process.
Absolutely. The guy gets all the accolades.
Yeah, and he's done a great job. We've actually had him back now for more than a month, and he's doing so good, we said, let's keep this going. Let's do another month. So he's been putting out 1 or 2 videos a day over at clips.freetalklive.com, and you can go there and subscribe to that channel and watch them there, or you can follow our social media channels on Telegram. We've got telegram.freetalklive.com, twitter.freetalklive.com, and then the Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So
he loved the bit last night from about the militant lesbians.
Right, the one where watching pornography was turning women, according to our caller, into lesbians.
And men into pedophiles.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
I
didn't even know what to do with the crazy lady.
Well, we had fun with her.
Yeah, right.
And then he turned it into a video. So check it out at clips.freetalklive.com. We go to your calls and your thoughts. Larry is listening in Evansville, Indiana, I believe, to WGBF. Hello, Larry.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You were just talking about the rich leaving. Let's not you and I, people there at the station, but let's have all of our listeners remember what's happened here recently in the state of New York with Governor Cuomo talking about all the things in the past, all the things he was going to do, and that is done in the state of New York. But also then, he seems to always give the hand away. He's saying that they're running a couple $1 billion shortfall, but yet he complained that all the rich people are leaving the state of New York
and
relocating.
Why. Yeah,
I wonder why. And you know, we can talk about Republicans, we can talk about Democrats, we can talk about all these things, but in my call tonight is simply centering on this tonight, particularly the Democrats, because you can take a look at Detroit, New Orleans, Newark, New Jersey, Frisco, Chicago, Milwaukee. And here's what the listeners need to know about the socialist Democrats, is that in 1960, Detroit was the richest city per capita in the United States. So the first Democrat mayor of Detroit came in January 62. So between 62 and 2013, it kept going down. So by 51 years, 2013, they filed bankruptcy. New Orleans, 1872, it's been Democrat. Newark, New Jersey, 1948. Frisco, 56. Chicago, 1931. Milwaukee, 1908. Plus, twice since then, they've had socialist mayors. So that should give an indication to what socialism does to our major cities, and eventually is trying to spread it out throughout our country. And you take the people that are moving out of states like California and New York, places like that, they're moving to states like Florida, Texas, which historically are Republican, but they're taking their votes with them.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go, hey, we're going to go down here and get away from all those taxes, and then they go down there and vote socialism right back.
They sure do.
Yeah, they seem to do that. I was at Freedom Fest a few years ago. I saw a debate between economist Steve Moore from Cato or Heritage, I'm not sure where he's from, but and Paul Krugman from New York Times. And Krugman, confronted with this question, said that the reason people are moving to Texas and Florida is air conditioning. He did not address why they were moving from California to Texas.
Yeah.
But, regardless, and it also doesn't really address that New Hampshire has one of the highest, I think it's net worth of people in the state. So, New Hampshire per capita has some of the highest net worth. They haven't picked up and moved. So maybe it's not, warmer climes and air conditioning. Maybe it's just the socialism.
Larry, thank you for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. We got Pat in northern Michigan listening to WZTK FM in Alpena. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm not calling in so much to holler about the snakes in Washington. I'm saying we have viper nests all over the country.
Absolutely.
I'm here in Michigan, and we're on our second female governor here. The first one, she instituted a trailer plate that was permanent. Well, you got to pay $75 right now for, let's say you got 3 trailers in your yard, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's $450. Bang, right out of your pocket right now. So they got $150 billion or $150 million in the coffers just off of that act. Well, the next time they got their tit in the ringer, they decided that they were going to put a little sticker on the license plate if you wanted to go on to public land, therefore any 2-track, without getting ticketed or fined, you had to have this little $10 dimple on your license plate. And her latest, the next governor here, her concoction is that she wants to institute 45-cent a gallon gas tax.
She wants to
ease it in and make it less painful.
Is that Michigan?
Huh?
Michigan. Yeah, that'll be the highest gas tax in the country.
Yeah, exactly. She's trying to make it worse than California.
Wow.
I mean, this state used to be red. Now we're going purple. Hell, I'm feeling quite black and blue.
That's tough. That's tough. Anything else you want to share, Pat?
No, it's just it makes it real hard on the rural folks. I live 20 miles out of town, and it costs me $10 to go anywhere.
Yeah, he's probably right.
Thanks for the call tonight, Pat.
Which is going to go to 15
with the gas tax.
Yeah, and I abuse the roads not at all. If anything, I fill in potholes rather than make them.
Don't let them catch you do that because they don't like it when you fill their potholes.
No, well, there's kids that go out on these 2-tracks with their big mud trucks, and they just try to make the hole worse to see if the next guy can get through it, I'm not one of them fellas. I want to be able to get to my fishing hole.
Fair enough. Pat, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you there. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE.
That's the voice of working America.
Yeah,
and
frustrated.
Working America is pissed.
Frustrated. What do you do about it, though? Because the Republicans aren't that much better.
No, they're not.
I mean, really.
Well, I've always said the only legitimate protest is a tax protest.
Why is that the only legitimate one?
Because
no one's going to do anything.
Because as long as you give them their money, they don't care what you're doing to protest. You can wave banners, hold signs, do rallies.
Yeah, that's true. However, even if you don't give them money, the federal government can just print it out anyway.
That's true.
What do they care?
So if that's the case, then why do they tax anyway? It's because it's an issue of
obedience.
control.
Yeah, totally obedience.
Yeah, they want the extra revenue coming in. Why not?
Well, yeah, if they can get it.
Yeah.
And it's it gives people a sense of power to be able to go after their neighbor. That's nice. They like that.
Speaking of places that are overtaxed, there is the Venezuela story that I hope we'll get a chance to talk about. I know, Mark, you're going to be heading up the show tomorrow night. So I don't know if you're going to cover it then, but maybe Tuesday we can discuss it when Vin comes in here, because the power is out in Venezuela. Here's just a brief update on it. This from Reuters. Furious Venezuelans lined up to buy water and fuel today as the country entered its fourth day of a nationwide blackout that has left already scarce food rotting in shops, homes suffering for lack of water, and cell phones without reception. Authorities have managed to provide only patchy access to power since the outage began Thursday in what President Nicolas Maduro called an act of U.S.-backed sabotage.
Yeah, it's the U.S. that's knocking out the power in Venezuela.
But critics insist it's the result of incompetence and corruption, and I suspect that's the truth.
It's good that they have power outages, because at least they have power some of the time, right? There are some countries out there that don't have power at all. And at least those guys can get a little bit of it on occasion.
Well, they do have a lot of oil.
Right, and they squander that as a natural resource.
Right. The fact that a country with plenty of oil on hand doesn't have power shows something has gone seriously wrong.
It was an old Gilligan's Island clip where they were talking about the creation of money, and says you take your natural resources and then you trade internationally with it, to get other things that you're not able to produce naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how trade works. And Venezuela has all that oil.
Yep.
And again,
no wealth. They used to, but it's gone now.
Yeah, I mean, they have the largest oil known oil reserves or something. There's some superlative surrounding the amount of oil that they've got in the ground. And people are starving and they don't have power. That's not the United States' fault. That's really, really, really bad management.
Yeah, so it's a story I want to cover in more detail, because it is apparently the worst outage they have ever had in the history of the country.
It ain't going to get better.
And it certainly hasn't gotten better yet. We'll see you tomorrow night. You can join us online. In the meantime, head over to freetalklive.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.